No, theory is so much more, education is so much more than just doing the job.
So you mean that education is actually good because they would allow you to have the work experience alongside
But the thing is,
theory?
I feel like you learn a lot more from the experience. You can see it hands-on.
On average, how many classes do you have that teach you about how to fill in certain things?
We are the age where we're exposed to, we're taught about it constantly.
If you just look in terms of society or community about what they're going to do if they hear you haven't gone to uni, they're going to judge you.
Having an education is more important than experience. Having an education is more important than experience. Give you a couple of seconds to mull some ideas. If you feel like you know and you're confident, come forward and you either agree or disagree. So having an education is more important than experience. So agreeers on this side and disagreeers on that side. Are we split? 3-3? Oh no.
No.
I was going to go there.
You can all go there.
You can, by the way, if
I
you
will
want.
face you.
It doesn't matter. You can if you like. So agreeers
Oh, but then-
and disagreeers. All right, you've got a couple of minutes to discuss your points. Go ahead.
I feel like when you're working or when you have that sort of experience, so I think we're limited to work experience for this topic. You can both learn and get the experience at the same time. So you're getting the educational factor and the physical. So you're getting theory and practical.
No, but you're not getting theory though. You're getting practical, it's not theory.
Yeah, but through the practice you get in theory.
No, theory is so much more, education is so much more than just doing the job. It's so much extra knowledge that you get. Doing the job is you're doing one job, whereas you're learning so many different things. Then when you go into the job, you've got that kind of, the background, the theory where you can never go wrong.
Yeah, but if the system goes as theory, then job, they assume that you're going to be using the theory in the job, right?
Let me give you an
So doesn't that mean if you work the logic backwards, you start from the job straight away with the practice, you're going to get naturally the theory behind it as well.
I think we're being a little bit reductionist if we're looking at just jobs and work experience as a whole. I think, for example, if you look at travel experience, you can learn the theory behind certain cultures, foods, the way that these different countries interact with each other and politically and whatever. But I think if you actually travel to those countries, in a way, it's sort of an education itself. I think you can gain education through experience, and it doesn't necessarily need to be reading a book.
Let's think about it this way, yeah? If you want to be a doctor, you're going to go into medicine, yeah? How are you going to go and learn the job on the job? You have to have that theory. I don't want my doctor, if I'm sick, to come and he's just been learning his whole life. Okay, where have you studied? I haven't studied, I just learned on the job. Come on, that's
the thing. From like second year onwards, they have placement years, so they're doing both the practical and the theory. The theory, for example, they'll learn the theory first, then in practical.
So you mean that education is actually good because they would allow you to have the work experience alongside
But the thing is,
theory?
I feel like you learn a lot more from the experience. You can see it hands-on from experience.
So you're not denying that education is very important.
It's important.
It's that you're saying work experience has more contribution to your success than the theory behind it. Because theory is more expanded knowledge, whereby you might only use some section of it when you're working, and you might feel like it's more efficient to just work rather than have extra knowledge that you won't use.
I'd say, for example, talking with the same analogy of a student, if you were to put a student in the environment of where he's got hands-on approach,
Yes.
it would allow for him to have not only the muscle memory, but the theoretical memory.
But that's what happens in university. Like they have the laboratory section, they have
remember that. But when it comes to, for example, just book knowledge, it's just memory.
Yeah,
like
but you're finding a doctor operating on you or a lawyer backing you in court or something like that, and you haven't studied.
If he's got that experience, then it's similar to a lot of
you are
other
thinking of education in terms of the Eastern world. The Western world is completely different. Like if somebody from Iran comes here, the mathematics they know, the way they've been taught is very much theory. But they come here, they see the practical aspect of education as well. So this country specifically looks at both sides when they are educating a student, so that they have both enough practical and theoretical information once they have graduated. And depending on the standards of the university and how high they are, obviously they train you accordingly.
I do believe, though, it depends on, for example, your industry. If we do take the analogy of a student, doctor, lawyer, dentist, all of these careers that you need a lot more theoretical knowledge, of course, university. But I do think if you're going to to study, for example, media or art history or even English to a certain extent, like all these other sort of vocational, more humanities-based subjects, I do think you can gain a lot more knowledge, a lot more education through experience. Because I don't think if you were to go into media and you start training someone from the age of about 15, just coming in, shadowing what you do, sort of seeing how you operate cameras and microphones and everything, and you learn to pick things up rather than waiting till you're about 18 years old, going into university, studying the theory behind it, getting into a job and starting at entry level. The person that's 15 years old that's been learning this stuff from such a young age can climb much quicker through the ranks than everybody else.
That's specific field only.
But
even then I disagree. That's wrong, because even in the sense of something like that, media, for example, you need to be good with words. You need to know how to read, how to write. So that it comes with education. That doesn't come on the job. But education provides you that basis, that the English language, your grammar, the way you speak, the way you conduct yourself.
So that's exactly what we're talking about. But these are the attributes you actually get from studying.
You don't get that from the job.
But of course you
No.
get that.
If you look at somebody who's educated, let me tell you something. If you look at an engineer, for example, that has just been working, is a very popular engineer who does his job well, the way he would talk or write or fill in a form or even, the characteristics he would have whilst in a job would be different to somebody who's educated, who might come from a well-known university. They have been trained in a different way. This person has been trained in a different way. So I think it's extra attributes you get from university, like your character gets developed.
Yeah, but you're still getting the training needed to accomplish the job without the education.
Yeah, but
you don't need the education to complete the job successfully.
Someone working in media, writing, for example. How are you going to write if you don't know how to? Your grammar,
with
your
experience,
language
the more you work in that environment, the more you're going to pick up on the tricks.
But the thing is, realistically,
I
at
feel like
university,
assessment is a different question now. But I'm saying,
no, who's assessing you in your job?
You'll be a higher up. The person who's already trained you.
So what's the difference between that person and a lecturer?
You should assess yourself and see how well your success rates are.
You can't assess yourself.
Why not?
No, come on.
What do you mean? If I
You can't assess yourself fully to become. You need somebody who knows the job better than you to assess you.
As in, if I'm still employed at the place a year later, I'm pretty sure I'm assessed myself that I'm doing a good job.
I do think realistically, if we look at university, on average, how many classes do you have that teach you about how to fill in certain things? How many classes do you have that teach you about finance and how to navigate your way in the world? When you get out of university, 9 times out of 10, well, rough statistic, a lot of students tend to find that they go into the job and they go, I wasn't prepared at all for this.
I'm going to give you personal information on this. So I've done a lot of education at university. I've taught a lot at university. And I'm now at a point that I have 2 masters, BSc, and finishing a PhD. And I'm like, oh my God, I never thought about the work perspective of this subject because it's so broad. And every job that I want to go into, I have to get a specific training in it. And maybe I'm going to be starting at the job the same level as somebody who finished his BSc or masters. Okay? That's a very difficult position to be in after studying a lot. But the advantage of having higher qualification is that when I start a job, compared to a BSc student who's starting a job, the progress I can make in a year is much more substantial than I can go quickly into managerial position, whereas that person cannot.
We'll stop it right there. Thank you very much. Everyone up, please.
That's a fair point.
That's a very good point. Very good.
I fear I would be judged if I don't go to uni. I fear I would be judged if I don't go to uni. Agreeers on this side, disagreeers on that side. If you have your opinion, please come forward. I fear I would be judged if I don't go to uni. Agreeers on this side, disagreeers on that side. Fantastic.
Exactly expected.
Okay, Bismillah.
First things first, you know how the whole stereotypes with parents, for example, with me personally, we're come from a Pakistani household. When I dropped out of uni, my parents were just, they were like, oh, you need a degree for a job, you need one. But realistically, you don't really need the degree for a job or anything. You've all probably heard most millionaires in the world don't even have a degree. So,
I think the judgment comes from the previous generation. So any judgment that happens in our culture is from either our mums our parents' background or our grandparents' background. Our generation has learned not to judge each other and to be more understanding of each other's situation. And success is not, it does not equate how much you've studied. It equates how much you love what you're doing. Right now, we are more based on loving what you're doing rather than showing off.
No, I agree with what you're saying, but at the end of the day, if I dropped out of uni tomorrow, a lot of people are going to start judging me differently. From the older generation and some from the current generation that we're in. It's going to happen.
Now, one thing,
regardless.
if you stay in uni for the next 4 or 5 years, how are you going to feel at the end of it, doing something that you did for your parents?
No, I'm not denying that. At the end of the day, if I stick true to uni, I'll stick true to uni because I believe in it and I believe it's successful. But at the end of the day, if I was to drop out, even if I like it or not, I'm still going to get judged. Especially for example, if someone's trying to get married nowadays, the first thing any family is going to ask, do you have a degree?
How much money you have?
I think things have changed. I think things have changed. If you're able, for example, to pay the mahar, if you're able to do things like that, you have the money, you've built, for example, a business. So if you haven't gone to uni, I'm guessing you've got something you like to do, right? Or something you think is going to be good for you. You've had that time, you've built that up, you make your money, you're enjoying it. Who's going to judge you? At the end of the day, if you're paying the bills, that's all that matters.
That normally parents who don't have a higher education degree force their kids to have more education. Whereas people who are educated, they actually know how it works. They just care about their kids enjoying life, becoming successful. I've actually helped people to drop out of uni, and I'm actually happy about that because seconds matter. We don't go based on other people's opinion. You need to be happy with your own opinion. You can't force yourself to believe that uni is success, makes me successful because this and that person's
I do think there is. Sorry.
No, I wanted him to speak because he got cut off twice.
I do think there is a reason for that, though. I do believe that there is a sort of subliminal pressure, and I think it's completely justified for young adults to feel judged because they don't go to uni, or equally judged because they do go to uni. But I do feel like from employers there is a subliminal pressure, and I've experienced it myself. If you apply for a job and you say, I've got a degree from this university, some employers go, oh, okay, so tell me about that, and they get more interested in you, and you sort of find that you are able to build a bit more of a rapport and a bond. But equally, I've also seen sort of friends of mine that haven't gone to uni or have dropped out of uni. When they go for job interviews, they're like, oh, okay, so you didn't go to uni. So there is a little subliminal pressure, but again, I do think it depends on your field, it depends on your background.
There is a third situation as well, where you're overqualified. And that is something that normally not all the people know. So once you educate yourself above a level where you're more educated than the manager of a company, they will not take you in. So I had a friend that wanted to get job experience from BHS, just alongside her master's. She had to say, I'm going to a lower university. She had to kind of forge her CV and say that I'm going to this university, I'm studying something. She was studying medicine at the time. She said, I'm not studying medicine, and all this to get the job. And I have actually had this problem as well, where you're too qualified to actually get into a job.
But I feel like with what you said, you shouldn't have other people's judgments come onto you and force you into a position where you don't want to be. If you don't want to go to university, for example, but then you feel like because of other people's judgments, you're putting yourself in this position and you're studying something that you don't want to study, you're going to end up just living a life where it's suited to other people's needs or to other people's expectations. You're not living a life that you want to live.
I get that. Just to remind you guys, I fear I would be judged if I don't go to uni.
No, because I'm saying, at the end of the day, your decisions are your decisions. Everyone who makes it, it's everyone's life, it's their own lives. If you just look in terms of society or a community about what they're going to do if they hear you haven't gone to uni, they're going to judge you. It's not about whether or not you decide to make a decision based off their judging you.
But would you want to get into such, like you were mentioning marriage, would you want to get into a family who's going to already judge you based on qualification rather than who you are? Would you want to be in that mindset or get your kid to
I feel like it's difficult to escape.
It's not everyone.
I feel like majority, but it's the default setting now.
Find the one who is same-minded as yourself.
But I
don't think the girl has the same mindset as the family does.
I think there's things more important that come before the degree. I think your persona, who you are, your reputation, all these things come before. So don't really fear the lack of education. It doesn't really mean much,
but society
especially further down the line. Once you have your family, once you're doing everything, you're not really going to care if someone knows that you didn't go to university because you've got your life on track.
I get it, but the reason why judgment of not going to uni appears and happens in society is because everyone expects you to have a degree. Because the expectation is you go from primary, secondary, sixth form, and then university.
Listen,
the default
already
setting.
we're half-half. So 50% don't expect this. 50% are grown up with a mindset which expects it. So the society is the same. Not everyone expects it.
Yeah, but what would you say is the general view of the society? Would you say general view of
General
society
view
is
of
everyone
what?
going to university?
What kind of a family? A family who has not been educated?
In general, just in general.
I mean,
Everyone.
society.
But I think
every Shia Muslim within London.
variability.
The thing is, nowadays
I'd say
it's a lot
majority
easier.
of people would judge you if you didn't go to uni.
I think there is definitely a looking good culture that we have, especially in the Muslim community, from what I've experienced. You surround yourself with people who go to good universities, good colleges, good this, good that, and you're viewed by the public or by your community as someone who is held in good stead. But if you hang out with people who don't go to university, didn't get the great grades, didn't, go to the best schools, there is a little bit of a sort of a judgment there. And I do understand that some students do feel judged if they don't go to university. And I think it's a lot to do with where they grow up, the background that they have, the importance education is placed in the family as a whole. Because you can place importance on education without forcing your child to go to university.
All right, we'll stop it there. Thank you very, very much. Everyone stand, please. Everyone stand and get ready for the final statement. We recording, everyone? Everything okay? Yeah? Okay, so for this segment, I'd like to ask you to come forward. Come forward and sit in either agree or disagree. So you either sit in agree or disagree, and then I will give you this statement. So please come forward and choose. It's totally up to you. You can either sit in agree or disagree. None of you know the statement. So please sit. Maybe the sisters can choose, like this time you guys agree, this time I'll agree, but next one you agree, and I don't know, whatever.
Okay.
No. I was with you.
Okay?
Yeah.
So this side agree to this statement and you guys disagree to the statement. So the statement is, although my parents are of a different generation, they still know my struggles.
My parents or a parent. It's different to actually acting upon it. So I don't know where I'm sitting right now. So you can inform them of your struggles, but whether they actually act upon it, that's a different thing.
I think there's a bit of a generational difference. I think in this generation, in this time that we have compared to our parents' generation, there is a massive push towards mental health awareness, disability awareness, and all these different things that are coming out, especially post-COVID and during COVID, actually. It was a big, big thing. And I think from our parents' generation, it was just very much brushed under the carpet. Oh, no, it's fine. You're not depressed, you're just upset. It's fine. Go outside and play. You'll be okay. So I think when you come to somebody and say, look, I've got depression, I've got anxiety, I can't sleep because of this, this, and this, you're met with a lot of resistance. And it's very much sort of, you'll be fine, don't worry about it.
So that is a struggle, right? That is current struggle, but that's struggle that's always been there. So do you think your parents never dealt with that themselves?
I think it depends.
You see, with the older generation, you see mental health, it just didn't exist back in their time.
Yeah, but so many people were just better off.
Yeah, but the thing is, okay, I'll take you from me personally. Back in the day, like my parents, they grew up in Iraq. And so with their education system, it was very violent compared to our one. It would be a lot more like physical. For us, it's a lot softer, and then we're more exposed to these, like for example, these mental health issues and all these other issues where we're encouraged to be more vocal about it.
Why are we exposed to more mental health issues than our parents?
Because we've become
probably
more
lived in
aware.
war and
They had it harder.
They had it harder, but who do they go to talk to? It's like the sister said, oh, you're fine. That's what their parents were telling them. Oh, it wouldn't have even existed in them. They wouldn't have been taught it. We are the age where we're exposed to it, we're taught about it constantly. There's months for mental health awareness. There's months for different types of awarenesses. If you go back to Iraq,
by the way,
higher now than it was back.
By the way, guys, struggles doesn't actually have to mean mental health struggles. It just means that my parents have lived a different generation to me, and therefore they don't know what they're saying. They don't know how to guide me. That's what the kind of the statement is more about.
If you're struggling in business, for example, and your dad's a successful businessman, and that's a struggle of yours, is he not going to start picking up on it?
No,
If
business models
at the end of the
change
day-
over time.
At the end of the day, parents can't read our minds. The more we speak to our parents about our struggles, the more they're going to be aware of the struggles. Naturally.
And
They're
that's
aware,
our
but
part.
they're not going to act
They're not-
upon it.
Well, that's not the question. The question is, do they know
Nobody
about it?
understands.
They know about
Does
it.
my
but
dad know I'm struggling
when
with my
they knowing
business?
about
Of
it,
course
what's
he's
that
going to know
gonna
if I
do?
struggle with my business if I speak to him about it.
Okay, but him knowing and him acting, two different
That's
things.
a different
Like,
question. That's a different discussion.
Yeah, that
We're
was
not talking
a-
about action. We're talking
I
about
don't know why I'm
knowing.
saying.
That's the feeling.
Maybe I should rephrase. Although my parents are of a different generation, they can still help me with my struggles.
Still, I'm
Of course they can.
No,
They can't help us.
I
you
disagree.
bring up the whole business idea, right?
Yeah.
Business back in the days compared to business now is completely different. There's two different models of business.
I think one thing
From
they
then to
can
now.
help,
Get that.
if
So-
they do help, is financially. Why? Because in the past, it was much easier to get a house. It was much easier to have equities and everything. So they can, if they want to, help financially.
But what if they themselves don't have
I
it?
disagree with
Of course
that.
they
I
can.
think
Or they say that we had it easy. Like, what if they don't understand how we're going through the increasing housing prices, as you mentioned with the housing or any
Yeah,
finances?
yeah.
The rate of inflation has gone up, but then the salaries have stayed the same or around a similar
That's
price.
where
So-
her statement comes
Yeah.
true. I'm sorry, I'm sitting in the wrong place. I don't even know where I'm sitting. But the thing is, it all has to do with healing. They have to have had a good experience with their parents. If their parents were people who helped them, who were people who were healed as well in terms of both mentally and physically and emotionally, everything, they would have had a good experience, good childhood. They would want to give their child a good childhood
So
as
then
well.
you're just saying it's a cycle.
So it's a cycle.
Yeah.
So as long as one person breaks this cycle and heals, the rest of the generation will be healed. And happy.
I agree, but I think also if we're looking at the idea of help, are we looking at it sort of quantitatively? So can you give me X amount of money so that I can put a deposit on my house? Or are we looking at it more sort of emotionally? Are our parents of a different generation, our grandparents of a different generation, able to help us regulate emotionally? Or is it a case of, oh no, that's fine, I'll help you with X amount of money and you'll be fine?
I
Whilst
think-
in the
I
meantime,
feel
you're
like it's
still
both.
struggling,
I
trying
think it
to
all
buy
comes
the
back
both.
to how we're brought up to believe a parent has responsibility to their kids. Okay? Some people think, like in the past, they would have so many kids, and the only thing was the dad had to financially provide, and the mum was just there. So now, because the kids are much less, we have less kids in the house, there's more time allocated to each kid. So there's more work done for that kid.
I actually disagree with that. I agree with it to an extent. However, I do think nowadays there isn't that much time allocated to the kids because now you can't survive on a single
Compared
household
to
income.
past.
No,
Compared to the past. So you can't survive on a single income household.
But
you
compared
find
to
that-
past.
Yeah,
Like if there
I
were
think-
10 kids with, financial
Yeah.
stability, still, it would still be less time than now.
But I do think that goes back to what you were saying about how the cost of living was down and the salaries stayed the same. Nowadays, you've got a complete flip.
So it all goes back to, can the parents help financially the kids so they have this stress removed and they can
But they
be
can't.
Of course they
better?
can.
They can't.
Every
Because
problem,
everything's changed.
every problem in every generation might
seconds.
come in a slightly different way. But essentially, your parents have dealt with the same things you've dealt with. We all think we're special, that we've all got our own problems. But no, they've dealt with the same things you've dealt with before. Maybe in a slightly different way, different generation. Maybe we
No,
do it
actually,
online.
there's a hadith on
whereas
this. There's a hadith on this.
There is, and things,
from Imam Ali that
Yeah.
he's said that, I know it's in Persian, I'm trying to translate, that don't expect your kids to be like you because they're being brought up for a different generation than you are, with different struggles and hardships. So we are brought for a different generation.
All right, we'll stop it there. Thank you very much, guys. Well done. That's one episode done.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There is a beautiful dua from Lady Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha, where she teaches us to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from laziness." Within the religion of Islam, within the teachings of the Holy Quran and Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, laziness doesn't have any place. It should not exist. I as an individual, I must strive in gaining knowledge. I must strive in working hard. I must strive to be elevated in whatever position that I am in. Always we have to know, as the followers of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, since our Ahl Bayt, they are one in everything, They are at the peak of everything. We, as their followers, we must be also trying to become one. If I'm a doctor, if I'm an engineer, if I'm a parent, if I'm a father, husband, wife, teacher, mechanic, whatever field that I am in, whatever post that I have responsibility of it, whatever position that I'm in, again, be it individual, be it workforce, be it education, I must strive to be number one. I should not be a burden on anyone. People should not look at me that say, wow, look at these Muslims. They're always relying on the government help and they do not work. They are lazy. They don't want to do their best. No. Muslims, Shia, the followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and the followers of Fatima al-Zahra and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they must be number one in whatever they do. With our approach, with this approach, we can change people's perspective. Imagine when people look around in their work environment, in their societies, in their communities, they see everything that is number one has been occupied by Shia. The best father, the best mother, the best husband, the best wife, the best children, the best students, the best doctor, and so on and so forth. So we have to really, really work hard, brothers and sisters. And not forgetting our position. Well, as a mother, that is a very important role that I have to play. I have to be the best mother, producing the best children to be the soldiers of Imam al-Mahdi ajalallahu ta'ala farajah sharif. As a father, I have to be the breadwinner. I have to make sure that my wife has the comfort in her house so she can be involved in the upbringing of the children. As a children, we must be respecting our parents and to be the best children. As a doctor, as an engineer, as a layman working outside, as a cashier, whatever position that I'm in, I must strive to work hard. I must strive to be number one. That's what is required from us when we see within the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. I should not be sitting home and waiting for government help. Not at all. I have to go work hard. You see within the ahadith that you wake up early in the morning before Salat al-Subh, pray 2-3 rak'ah Salat al-Layl, and then start with Salat al-Subh, your day should begin. That's when the rizq and sustenance comes. If I want sustenance, well, teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam tells us that's the time for it. Wake up in the morning. So I'm not going to be lazy anymore. I'm not going to be sleeping, studying. طلب العلم من المهد إلى اللحد, from the cradle to the grave, gaining knowledge, working hard. We see how Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have appreciated a man who was digging and he was farming. And they said that Allah loves a person who works hard for their family. So in a university, if I'm in, I have to make sure I become number one in the field that I'm studying. After that, when I start working, I have to become number one. I should not be sitting back waiting for someone, for even sometimes not the government, my parents, my spouse, my relative, somebody has to give me anything. No, I have to work hard. As a husband, you should bring the breadwinner, bring comfort to your wife and family. As a wife, should be able to prepare the house for him when he comes in and to be able to serve one another. Husband serves their wife and wife serves their husband. So we have to keep in mind, laziness, it doesn't exist. It should not. We should seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to laziness, because it's a disease that we have, and we have to make sure our children, they go through the upbringing. How? By seeing us. Our youth should see the older that they are working hard day and night for their dunya and their akhirah. We have a hadith that if a person, he is lazy toward the affair of this dunya, definitely they will be lazy when it comes to the affair of akhirah, life after death. So we should not be lazy at all. Or another hadith from the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, where he says, work in this dunya as if you are living in it for eternity, and work for akhirah, life after death, in a way that you die tomorrow. That balance and struggle and strive as much as we can until our last breath. I don't remember thinking and seeing within the hadith of Ahlul Bayt that we have retirement. I haven't seen it. If you have, please let us know. There is no retirement that you get to this age, you will retire, you just sit home and just relax. Working day and night toward having better life in this dunya and akhirah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين.